Ok.
Nå er det ikke minutt.
Nei.
Ikke minutt. Åja. My bad girl. Jeg tar 2 minutter.
vente 2 minutter. Når det er 59, så du kan bare...
Er den slått av?
Ok. Nå. Please stand up, everyone.
Please be seated. Good afternoon and welcome to this public defense of the thesis entitled Exploring the Influence of Resistance Training Volume, Intensity and Diet on Skeletal Muscle Adaptations. Today's candidate, Sjur Øfsteng, completed his thesis in April of 2024. And based on the proposal from the Department of Physical Performance, the research committee at the Norwegian School of Sports Sciences has appointed the following committee to judge the thesis and the other requirements for the award. Professor Lene Annette Hagstad, Norwegian School of Sports Sciences, chairperson. Professor Heikki Kyräläinen, Faculty of Sport and Health Sciences, University of Jyväskylä, first opponent. Professor Ferdinand von Walden, Department of Women and Children's Health, Karolinska Institutet, Stockholm, second opponent. The committee has concluded that the thesis meets the standard worthy of the public defense for the award of Doctor of Philosophy in Sports Science. And earlier today, the candidate has given a trial lecture with the title, What are the short and long-term benefits of maintaining physical fitness for military personnel during prolonged operations? And what are the strategies that are most effective? The trial lectures has found to be satisfactory by the evaluation committee. And I would now ask the candidate to introduce his doctoral research in the form of a short lecture and the opposing members of the examination committee to engage the candidate in the defense of his work. Should members of the audience have questions regarding to the research, I invite you to bring these in the written form to my attention in the break between the first and the second opponent. Then I ask the candidate, Sjur Øfsteng, to take the place at the podium.
Thank you. Dear committee, colleagues, family and friends, thank you for coming here today and listen to me. So I'll now present my thesis to you. So what is this thesis about? The overall topic of this thesis was to explore the effect of resistance training and dietary strategies to improve and maintain strength and muscle mass together with muscular performance. To start out, I want to put the topics into a general context. We have different populations that want to improve strength for different aims. For example, the elderly populations need to gain strength to manage stair climbing, while other persons have minimal time for training and need efficient training protocols in their busy daily life. An athlete, for instance, needs to improve strength to perform better in an exercise, specific to their sport. While in other populations and environments, such as in the military, they need gaining strength to accommodate the demands they face on the battlefield. Irrespective of the population investigated, they have in common a purpose of getting stronger and gain muscle mass. Wherein the civilian population perform exercise for health and functional performance and even for longevity, whereas the military needs strength for improving military tasks such as lifting capacity and for save and rescue. However, there are many training variables which can be manipulated to enhance strength and muscle mass. Training volume, intensity, and frequency are common variables used in training programs. Volume can, for example, be increased by the number of sets performed, while training intensity can be regulated by the load or repetition we are using. Depending on the population you are in, some training strategies may be chosen over another. Although in other environments, there is more about maintaining strength and muscle mass during periods. The military often experience fast-changing environments and need to cope with demanding physical and mental stress. This can lead to negative consequences for the soldier. Although in the end, it is how these populations or environments we are a part of are regulated by our cellular mechanisms in our muscles. that will be a deterministic factor for how individuals or groups may respond to training protocols or nutrients. So with this brief introduction to my thesis, let's delve more into the background. There is no obvious uniform training prescription which will maximize training adaptations for a group of individuals. We see that people do respond differently to the same training protocols. To highlight this perspective, Attiainen from 2016 looked at individual training responses to 24 weeks with resistance training in studies conducted over a period from 1996 to 2011, and observed that a large variation between individuals in response to performing 2 resistance training sessions per week in both muscle strength and muscle size, as we can see in this figure. It varies from negative -8 to above 60 in gains in muscle strength, and it varies between -10 to about 25-30 in changes in muscle size between individuals. Hence, there are likely underlying factors such as genetic predispositions, which may explain why there is such a variation in training responses between individuals, but may also affect training responses observed between studies. So in order to enhance person's strength and muscle mass gains and performance, we can manipulate training variables. Resistance training volume is regarded as an important variable in this regard, affecting training adaptations. Resistance training, with increasing the amount of training set per exercise, has shown a volume-dose relationship in both muscle strength and mass gains. However, are every individual benefiting from increasing the training volume? And may those who benefit of greater training volume having other characteristics is still somewhat not fully clarified in the literature. We are also the variable of training intensity. There is similar adaptation in muscle strength and growth, whether we are using heavy load with few repetitions or low load with higher amount of repetitions. This could be an interesting training strategy to improve or maintain strength for military personnel to sustain military readiness throughout the year. On the other side, there is more about maintaining muscle strength and mass during periods. Soldiers are often faced with multi-stressor environment, exposed to reduced energy intake, sleep deprivation, and high physical demands, which is typically observed in military field exercises. Such periods create a catabolic physiological environment in the muscle, wherein muscle proteins are broken down to provide substrate for energy metabolism. This may act negatively in terms of muscle mass losses and compromising soldiers' muscle function and performance. However, increased protein intake may be a strategy to preserve muscle mass, which has been seen during weight loss regimes. It thus provides exogenous proteins to sustain muscle protein synthesis, despite being in a catabolic state, and therefore may be an intriguing strategy for soldiers to maintain physical performance, military performance, and readiness. Okay, as we have seen, the training variables and nutrient strategies can influence how muscle changes in size and strength. But where is this regulated and how? Well, it is all coordinated in the muscles. With cues from its cellular environment, the muscle cell converts signals from the outside to inside of the cell through receptors in the membranes and channels in the membrane. One well-described signaling pathway is the mTOR axis, through several signaling proteins, as shown here. This axis is either facilitated or suppressed depending on the cues. When facilitated, the signaling cascades engage ribosomes, which then start to make new proteins. But mTOR has more functions. It facilitates transcription of ribosomal DNA from the nucleus, resulting in synthesis of new ribosomes. So mTOR pathway represents an example of an exercise-sensitive molecular pathway. Training protocols can change the activation of these signaling pathways. Therefore, these signaling proteins are interesting biological markers to measure to understand how individuals respond to training protocols. As we see, the ribosomes is where the proteins are built in a muscle cell, and a process that is called protein synthesis. In response to resistant training, there is an acute elevation in protein synthesis, which is elevated up to 48 hours post-exercise. This repeated acute events of muscle protein synthesis over time in response to a resistant training is believed to lead to accumulation of contractile proteins and subsequent muscle mass gains. However, in studies, there is not seen a clear association between acute muscle protein synthesis and chronic growth over time. This may indicate there is other mechanisms involved in regulating chronic muscle growth. The translation capacity measured by total RNA, a marker of the amount of ribosomes in the cell, has been associated with chronic muscle growth in studies. And with an increased translation capacity in response to resistant training, it may induce increased muscle protein synthesis at rest over time, as there are more ribosomes available for making proteins. Therefore, measuring the translation capacity by the total RNA levels is an interesting biological marker to investigate responses to resistant training. However, the time course of the rise in translation capacity has not been well studied yet. So with this background, the purpose of this thesis was to explore the effect of different resistant training volumes on muscle strength and muscle growth in untrained individuals. Furthermore, to determine a volume-dependent relationship between resistant training and molecular markers known to regulate muscle growth. And are these molecular markers associated with individuals who benefit from greater training volume? And we also wanted to determine the time course of ribosome biogenesis at the early stages of resistance training. And we also want to see on the effect of different resistant training intensities on muscle strength and muscle growth in moderately trained cadets, and the interlimbar responses and on muscular performance. And in the final study explore the potential of increased protein supplement on changes in body composition and muscle performance during a field exercise, and the recovery of these variables. To answer these aims, we included a within-participant design in study 1 and 2, where different treatments were allocated to participants' leg, either left or right leg. For study 3 and 4 in the military environment, we used a between-participant design, wherein participants were allocated to either perform 10 RM or 30 RM, or in the last study, different protein amounts. So, over to the methods in study 1. So in study 1, exploring the effect of resistant training volume over 12 weeks, we used this within participant design and allocated the legs to either training with 1 set or 3 set conditions. And they trained unilateral training in 3 exercises. Participants were young, untrained persons, and we included 5 strength measurements. And muscle mass were measured before and after 12 weeks. And we also had a muscle biopsy sample collected at 3 time points. So to the results of this study. So let's look at the effect of training volume on strength and muscle mass over 12 weeks. On the x-axis, we have the mean difference between training volume conditions. And on the y-axis, we have the muscle mass and the strength measurements. The dashed lines indicate there is no difference between the groups when the confidence interval crossing this 0 line. There was a greater increase in muscle mass gains in favor of 3-set volume after 12 weeks. And there was also a greater increase in muscle strength gains in favor of 3-set volume condition. And following the 12 weeks training intervention, there was a positive correlation between average changes in muscle mass and strength, meaning if you gained more muscle, you also got stronger in the end of the intervention. Okay, let's delve into the muscle and look at the signaling proteins. We measured acute changes in phosphorylation of mTOR, SX1 kinesis markers, and ribosomal protein SX, which is known biological markers in muscle promoting protein synthesis. These were measured in response to the 5th training session in week 2. In the upper panel, we have the different proteins, and we have set conditions on the x-axis and fold change from pre-exercise on the y-axis. As we can see in the lower panel, the difference between the condition, there was a greater phosphorylation of all markers in favor of 3-set condition, indicating a volume-dependent regulation, and thus aligning with muscle strength and mass data seen after 12 weeks resistance training as previously presented. And now let's look at the other signaling way from the mTOR axis. Ribosomal RNA are building blocks for developing new ribosomes in the muscle cell. So by measuring the total RNA levels, a proxy marker of ribosomal RNA content, we were able to assess synthesis of new ribosomes in response to resistance training. So here we got, on the x-axis, we have the time points, which was the baseline after 2 weeks and 12 weeks, and we have the total RNA per tissue weight on the y-axis. As we can see, both groups increased total RNA to week 2, but 3-set had a greater increase than 1-set condition. There was still greater amount of total RNA at week 12 compared to baseline, but there was no difference between the conditions now. The changes in total RNA level was also reflected when directly measured ribosomal RNA subspecies, as we can see here. Hence, there seems to be a volume-dependent regulation of ribosomal biogenesis, the synthesis of new ribosomes, especially in the initial phase of resistance training. The importance of making new ribosomes and maybe priming the muscle for growth by increasing the translational capacity seems to be related to growth and strength gains seen after 12 weeks of training. So in this figure, we investigated this relationship further. Here we see changes in muscle growth by CSA in 1-set condition on the x-axis and 3-set conditions on the y-axis. The dashed line in the middle indicate no difference between set conditions, meaning they were equally effective in enhancing muscle growth. The solid line represents the smallest vertical change set to 0.2 times the baseline between participants' standard deviation in the direction of the 3-set condition. So all these blue dots are participants having the benefit of 3-set training, and these purple dots below this solid line had the benefit of 1-set training. However, we saw that those benefit from 3-set also had a 80% higher total RNA level in the 3-set leg versus 1-set leg conditions at week 2. Likewise, those benefit from 3-set training in strength gains, these blue dots, had 10% higher total RNA levels than 1-set leg at week 2. Taken together, those who benefit from greater training volume in muscle growth and strength had a greater amount of total RNA at week 2, meaning they had an early increase in translational capacity. So in study 2, we wanted to further explore this early rise in translational capacity that we observed after 2 weeks in study 1. We also use a within participant design here, allocating different volume conditions to either leg, a variable volume and a constant volume. They performed either 6 sets in the constant volume leg, And a variable volume was varying between 6, 3, and 9 sets over total 12 resistant training sessions. We also had a control group not performing resistance training. Participants were young, untrained persons, and we had strength measures and muscle mass measures, and 8 biopsy samples. And the training intensity was set to 10 RM. Okay, let's look at changes in total RNA levels, the marker of ribosomes in the cell, over these 12 sessions. In the right panel, we have this purple dot, which indicates the training group, and the orange dot, which indicates the control group. In the left panel, we have the group comparisons between the conditions. Compared to the control group, there was a robust increase in total RNA from baseline to the 12th training sessions. And after 8 days without the training stimuli, there was a 20% decrease in total RNA content compared to the peak values seen at session 12. And there was no longer difference to this control group. When looking within the legs, the constant condition training with 6 sets versus the other leg varying between 6, 3, and 9 sets over the 12 sessions, we can see that the changes were similar between volume conditions in total RNA levels increases. These lines are following the same pattern over the 12 sessions. However, there was a rapid increase in total RNA following only 4 sessions, with a peak accumulation after 8 sessions equivalent to 50% of our baseline. So we call this phase the accumulation phase, turning up the capacity of the translation machinery, accommodating the demand for contractile proteins building muscles. We further explore the relationship between total RNA and muscle growth, as shown in this figure. Here we have increases in total RNA per sessions, and on the y-axis we have changes in muscle thickness. And we saw increases in total RNA per session correlates with muscle growth. However, having a larger amount of total RNA at this session 6 was not correlated with muscle growth. It does give implication for the importance of making new ribosomes measures that increases in RNA levels, in contrast to having a lot of ribosomes per se. So conclusion on study 1 and 2. Biological markers, strength and muscle mass outcomes showed greater change with 3-set training volume compared to 1-set training. The benefit of 3-set training displayed greater total RNA content at week 2, which predicted the long-term muscle growth and strength gains. Total RNA peaks after 8 resistant training sessions, while fluctuation in training volume over the 12 training sessions does not affect difference in ribosome biogenesis. 8 days of detraining decrease total RNA content. So let's switch over to the military environment and incorporating a resistant training program into soldiers' regular training day. Here we used a between participant design where we allocated 10 RM or 30 RM training to 2 different training groups. They were young, moderately trained cadets, and they had 3 test occasions over a 22 weeks period at baseline, after 10 weeks, and after 22 weeks. And they were tested in muscular performance, muscle mass, and they had 3 biopsy samples. So we're to the results of this study. So let's start with the effect of training intensity on muscle mass over this 22 weeks period. The mean difference, again, are on the x-axis, and muscle mass outcomes are on the y-axis. And the 0 line indicates group differences. There was a greater increase in upper body muscle mass using 10 RM, both after 10 and 22 weeks of training. And there was no difference between groups in lower body muscle mass measurements. When looking at the strength results, the 10 RM group had a greater increase in maximal strength in bench press while there were no difference between groups in 1 RM biceps curl. But for the weighted factor for upper body strength measurements, these two weighted against each other. Both groups increased upper body strength up to 10 weeks. However, 10 RM induced greater increase in strength from baseline to the 10th week and from baseline to the 22 weeks of training. Although there was no training-induced differences between 10 and 22 weeks. Whereas for lower body, 10 RM increased 1 RM leg press more than 30 RM after 22 weeks of training. For the pull factor, both groups increased lower body strength, but the difference between the groups was evident towards the end of the interventions after 22 weeks of training in favor of 10 RM. For muscular performance test, jump height increased more in 10 RM than 30 RM during the training period. And no other differences between groups were seen in sprint performance in the agility course or for muscular endurance performance. So conclusion of study 3, 10 RM led to greater upper body muscle strength and mass than 30 RM after 22 weeks. And 10 RM led to greater lower body muscle strength and jump performance than 30 RM. So over to the final study, the military field study. Here were protein supplementation allocated to 2 groups in a between participant design, where groups were ingesting either 1 or 2 grams per kilo body mass per day. Then they performed a 10-day field exercise with a 60% reduction in energy intake, equivalent to 10,000 kilocalories per day. And then they had 7 days of recovery before the last measurement. So they had 3 measurements of performance tests and blood samples and 2 body compositions measures before and immediately after the field exercise. So over to the results. So for the performance test, we have 1 RM in bench press and 1 RM in leg press, and we have a jump height in this figure C. And we have the difference in kilograms on the y-axis and centimeters on the y-axis in the figure C. Both groups decreased performance after the 10 days field exercise. But there was no difference between groups after this 10 days or after the recovery period. And both groups returned 1 RM strength towards pre-values after 7 days of recovery, except for jump height, which remained at reduced levels. The same happened in sprint cycling power test, with reduced performance after the field exercise and returned towards pre-values after the recovery period. There was no difference between protein groups in this measurement either. So over to the body composition. On the x-axis, we have the percent change from pre to after the field exercise, and we have the body mass composition outcomes on the y-axis. Overall, there was no difference between groups in any factors following the exercise and recovery period. There was no substantial change in muscle mass in response to the exercise, but there was close to a 40% decrease in fat mass. And there was a 6% reduction in body mass, meaning the loss in body mass was predominantly related to fat mass losses. And all variables returned to pre-values following the recovery period. So conclusion of study 4, there were no difference between protein supplementation groups in muscle strength, performance, or body composition following the field exercise. And they decreased performance, both groups. And there were no difference between supplementation group following the 7 days of recovery. And most variables returned towards pre-exercise levels, except for jump height, which remained at reduced levels. So what was learned from this series of studies? Training volume matters, but not for all. For some, volume was equally effective. Ribosome biogenesis is a determinant factor for muscle growth and strength. Intriguingly, the increases in total RNA seems to be more important for growth than the absolute amount. Training intensity matters, but both training intensity groups had an effect on the cadets. In a period of severe energy deficit, it is likely more important to prioritize energy intake than to manipulate macronutrient compositions for the soldiers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your nice presentation. And before I start to make my questions, I would like to thank Norges Idrettshøgskole for inviting me to be an opponent here, and the nice host you professors have given to us. Thank you very much. This PhD thesis demonstrates the resistance training volume dose relationship with muscle growth and strength very nicely. It also emphasizes the determined role of ribosomal biogenesis in muscle adaptation to resistance training. In the fourth paper, effects of the ingestion of either a high protein intake or a lower protein intake on muscle performance and body composition have also been studied. The scientific idea and objective of the thesis are clear and well described. The thesis was not hypothesis-driven, but contained an organized logical series of projects. It's easy to see that the planning and execution of this study have taken an incredible amount of work. So 4 different studies, 4 different papers. So I appreciate your work. But I have some questions to you. Let's start from the title. How well the title of your thesis describes the content of your thesis?
Well, it describes it.
How well?
Yeah, I was thinking about the title when I wrote it, of course. But the thesis is covering a lot of different aspects. So it was sort of difficult to have a very narrow, specific title for this thesis. Mm. So on one part, we have this focus on enhancing muscle strength and growth, and the other part of the thesis is sort of trying to maintain strength and muscle growth. So by using not only resistance training, but then by the nutrients. Mm. Mm.
So you are studying influence on resistance training volume, intensity, and diet on skeletal muscle adaptations, but you have also studied performance, physical performance.
Yeah.
Do you think that muscle adaptations is equal physical performance?
Yeah. Yeah, it's part of it. Yeah, because it's you need this adaptation in the neuromuscular system to improve your physical performance. So yeah, I think they're highly connected.
Mm. Mm. What are the other tissues connected to physical performance than muscle?
You mean the ligaments and tendons?
And
then a neurological system?
Yeah. So there are also other tissues affecting physical performance than muscle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I have here first some general questions, and I call it this thesis through, and then I will concentrate on the papers 3 and 4. So my second question is about your papers. You have published 4 different papers. In the first 2 papers you had untrained subjects, and the 2 last papers cadets. Why you recruited first untrained and then cadets?
Yeah. First of all, it was just how the PhD, my journey ended. Because first, yeah, I think first I actually had this very military objective with 3 different military studies. Actually, a block periodization study, which I had performed, but I decided not to take it into the thesis because my journey ended up in the ribosome biogenesis paper out in this journey. Yeah, and then it's sort of, I was also joining this first paper with Daniel, which is first author, and so it was a better link between the papers by doing this. Yeah, that was the storyline of my PhD journey and the papers, but
did you plan the entire PhD thesis in the very beginning that you will have this kind of papers?
No.
Okay.
It's just ended like that.
Okay.
Partly because of my interest in this molecular aspect, which I think is exciting, but also very difficult. Yeah. So I wanted to dig more into it, and that's why I turned over to ribosome biogenesis. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but you have put all very nicely together. Then general question about maximal strength. You have measured maximal strength. How do you know that person has produced his or her maximum? How do you know?
No, I don't know if they have this maximal effort, but I presume they have intended to do whatever they can, but if I would have making more sure that they have reached a maximum, I probably should have used this stimulation twitch technique, what it's called, yeah. So we have this reserve deficit. So if you know, yeah, then I could better measure it if they have taken out all their maximum.
I agree that first they are producing the voluntary maximum, and then you have this twitch. At the same time they are producing max. Yeah, correct. Then I would like to know, when speaking about maximal strength, role of joint angle and muscle length, muscle actions, and velocity of muscle actions on force production. So do you know force velocity curve and force time curve?
Yeah, I mean the Hills curve?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Hills curve with force velocity, and you have with lower velocity you are increasing your maximum strength because you have better time to have maximum cross-breaching in your muscles, but as you are increasing the speed you will lose this force.
How about in the eccentric phase?
And then you have the other way around, and you have a maximal effort on the top there. and you need to have maximal cross-bridging, and then when you are holding back.
What is the approximately the optimal knee angle when producing force of the knee extension muscles?
Knee extension?
Yeah.
We have about between 60 and 70 degrees. At least there we have measured in that angle in our studies, and we think that's where it is maximum. In
In physiotherapy, you are putting this way. We are saying about 100 degrees from fully 100.
Yeah.
But it's the same. I understand.
30% down. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, then I would like to know more about your ideas about muscle strength development. In the title you mentioned volume and intensity, but in your talk you also discussed about frequency. What is the role of training frequency on muscle development, force development?
It's part of the volume perspective. When you're increasing your training frequency, days per week, you can you increases your training volume, per week. But if the training volume is equal, if you are comparing, how should I say that? Increasing your training frequency, also increasing training volume, so they are sort of part of each other.
Okay. Then about muscle growth. First, I would like to ask why it's important to increase mass of skeletal muscle.
For the health perspective, you increases your muscle mass, also the energy metabolism goes up, which is good, and you also increases your insulin sensitivity, and that's one aspect. Increasing, having this muscle system, you also presumably are easier to be active, physical active in your daily life. But there are some discussions how much of the variation are muscle growth responsible for to muscle strength over a period, and there are not agreement across researchers, especially Lonek. I think that it's not so much connected, and that's because if you have a measurement by the baseline, you think increasing is if you're a heavier person, you also maybe have more muscle mass, and then you also have this linear relationship with muscle strength. But when as you train, this relationship are getting less distinct, meaning there is other morphological factors that also affect this strength relationship, and then the neurological aspect, of course, and fiber types and
Can you still mention more factors affecting muscle growth or muscle strength development than training and what you mentioned just?
You meaning other ways of training?
Not training, but are there other
morphological factors?
Not other external factors affecting, or internal factors affecting muscle growth and muscle development during some training period. You have.
You meaning
what is the role of hormones and especially anabolic hormones.
Yeah. There's been a discussion of this also in the literature, yeah. What is the role of testosterone and EF and all this anabolic in response to resistant training? And if you think about the maturation process when you're growing up, there seems to be there is more connected within muscle growth and these anabolic hormones. But when you are training, there have been no so good associations as we believed before. So, yeah.
Yeah, the concentration of hormones, for example, testosterone in the blood, it's not itself, but about hormonal receptors into muscle. What's their role?
Yeah, they are important, yeah. And we have, we have seen that, and that's maybe why there is differences between the upper body and the lower body in this 10RM study as well, maybe. As you have more, I think you have more receptors. There have been found to be more receptors in the upper body, which can have some importance, and maybe they are more sensitive for, I don't know, 10RM than 30RM in the upper body. That's just speculations.
Yeah, okay, thank you. You have nicely shown a picture from Ahtiainen et al. About the individual variation in different type of strength training. So because there is this in the individual variation, how should it take into account when programming strength training for people?
Yeah. Then you have to do this individualization of this training program. And I guess that's, until now, it's about trial and error, since we don't have these biological markers that is easy to use, and saying, okay, you have these markers, okay, you should do 30 RM, or you have these markers, okay, you should do 10 RM because you respond better. Yeah, for me, it's about trial and error, at least in the clinic. If you don't respond to that one, okay, we try another one because we know that will probably also give an effect.
Yeah, I agree. In practice, it's like this. There are no science.
We know there is different ways to enhance strength and muscle, and we need to use those strategies. But which individual who will respond to something, and why the other individual is responding to another thing, that's the question.
Okay, in the last paper you have studied proteins and protein supplements for cadets. So what's the role of nutrition in muscle strength and growth development?
Yeah, it is, as the figure I showed there is differences between fed and unfed situation when you are sort of training, but you need, the most important is the stimuli the muscle gets through some kind of resistance or something, and the nutrients or the proteins in specials are just the cherry on the top on the ice cream that will maybe give a little more increase. So, of course, if you are, but you should be in a well-balanced diet when you're training. because then you are sort of in this anabolic, more in this anabolic window. If you are in these soldiers which are struggling with coming into this catabolic environment, well, then they will have less, they will respond less maybe because the body needs to running the vital metabolisms for the body to work. Yeah.
So should they use drugs for improving or maintaining their protein balance during long operations, strenuous operations?
Drugs?
Drugs, anabolic steroids or some
Yeah.
other? There are not doping tests in military?
No, I think so. I think so. There's also this problem with the military, is that, as I was talking to some military personnel that I know, and the problem isn't that they have the nutrition available sort of all the time in these exercises. The problem is that they are not eating this stuff. So they have it available to sort of maybe increase the chance to have being more in not being so energy deficient. So I guess they need to, I don't know, but why are they don't eating it when they have it available? That's
Maybe they are not enough hungry.
no, and maybe when they are tired, okay, the satiety goes also down, and and we need some easy way to ingest this food macronutrients, maybe by
Okay, this was the background of your thesis. Then I will jump to research aims, and my question is, here you mentioned we aimed. What was your own role in these 4 different papers?
Yeah. In the first paper, which I co-authored with, I was co-author with sharing first authorship with Dan. No, I was second author. Sorry. This was the first study where I was introduced to the biopsy sampling. I was joining that, and I orientated the tissue, and also I learned all. This was the first time I also learned all these molecular techniques. So I was doing all these samples and the results for the molecular stuff. So I wasn't into the planning of the study, but I was more in the collecting and data analysis. For the second paper, where we were sharing this first authorship, here I was with all the way from the planning, sending applications, and setting up the analysis, taking samples, performing the trainings, and also then measurements and biopsy samples, and then the data analysis and the results, and And then for the third study, I was involved in the planning, and then I have to say I had responsible for organizing and performing this resistance training over 22 weeks. So it was quite a job to maintain compliance to the study. And we had 3 dropouts there, but and then collecting the data and analyzing the data and writing the results and discussions. And in the fourth paper, I was again partly partly involved in the planning, partly involved there, and but I did all the measurements on the soldiers, and then data analysis and results and discussion.
Okay.
So
Okay,
I
thank you.
think
Thank
that
you.
was that.
Then some questions about methods. You have had different body composition methods, MRI and DEXA, for example, in study 1. Why and what is the golden standard for body composition measurements?
The gold standard?
Golden standard.
Yeah, I think it's different opinions about that, but DEXA is supposed to be a golden standard for the whole body composition, as I have read. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know there is disagreement about that.
Yeah. Yeah, for people who are alive, but then of course cadavers, there are more accurate methods to do it.
Yeah.
Then some questions about ethics. It seems that ethical issues in your study have been conducted according to guidelines.
Yeah.
But when you have military people as subjects, how you ensure that they were really voluntary?
Yeah. So ensuring that their autonomy is pursued, maintained. Yeah, in the recruitment process, we had this introduction day with putting our project up to them, and then I also had some. Yeah, if there were questions from soldiers, I had them in the 4 hours, talking to them. But of course, I don't know if they were obligated to join my studies, but I do not think that, because those commanders higher up in the system, they were not so glad for us to conducting the study. So, because they think it's a waste of time. But so the soldiers which joined our study, I think, was.
And they signed the written informed consent.
Yeah.
Okay. Could you tell a little bit more about the ethical applications here in Norway? Is it easy to get positive statements, for example, when taking muscle biopsies? And how about the data protection legislation?
Yeah. I'm not too well into this, but I just know it's having this ethics and approval. We have to apply to this committee to see if it's following the guidelines. So I'm just following the guidelines.
Yeah, and how about this data protection legislation? In Finland, it's now very strict how you treat the data and when it's pseudonym or anonymous data. How about here?
Yeah, it's been more underlined that we need to have focus on that, and it's been pretty strict about where we are storing our data now anonymously, and so it has increased. We have to say that in our application how we are meant to store and anonymize our data. So.
Okay. Then I would like to ask one question about your performance tests. It's good that you have had 1 or 2 weeks familiarization period before you started your measurements. But still, for example, maximal isometric half squat, is it easy to control that the angles are the same and the position of the subject is the same in all your measurements?
Yeah. We try at least to control it as good as possible with having these lines put up where we are measuring precisely where they are standing. So we noted that down for the follow-up measurements. And we also have this half squat with the barrel up on your shoulders. We also mark the position and the knee angle depth. But of course, it's difficult to measure if there are sort of some weak links in the body during the measurements from time to time. That's then I do not have control on that.
And also counter movement jump, it's not easy task. Quite often there are some learning effects.
Yeah.
How about in your case?
Yeah, I think that's also all these counter movement jumps. It can vary from attempt to attempt, how good they are sort of, how good they are, how high they're jumping, and that's maybe because of a little better timing or little other angles or something. So the reliability may be low, and that's why in this case, I made the choice to take the average of 2 from time to time, because I read some papers and then because of this difference between attempts and that may reliability over several measurements, it will be more accurate instead of choosing the highest, because the highest from time to time can be because of luck and not because of the treatment. Yeah, so.
Do you know who has introduced counter movement jump in the first time in scientific literature?
Who person,
or in which paper?
Who introduced counter movement jump? Yeah. I guess before my time. I don't know.
In the beginning of 1980s, Carmelo Posco from Italy.
All right.
He studied in Jyväskylä and defended his PhD thesis there. Then you have taken several muscle samples, and you have used this fine needle technique. Do you know how representative those muscle samples are as compared to traditional Bergström's needle technique?
Yeah, that's the always discussion about that. Yeah, we have looked into that, and to argument for the use of microbiopsy, we see that we can get in the literature they're saying that we need at least 300 to 500 MS fibers, and that has been representative for the vastus lateralis. And we get that with the microbiopsy with less scary technique than the Bergström, maybe.
Okay.
And it's easy to to do a lot of biopsies with the microbiopsy in people, but
Okay, maybe further questions are coming. Okay, then calculation about energy deficit. You have based your calculations on DEXA estimated changes in fat mass and fat-free mass, and then equation you have given. How reliable and repeatable this method is? What is the golden standard to measure energy deficit?
Yeah. Yeah, since we're using DEXA, and there is a question about how valid that was in our case. But the gold standard for energy deficit, is it the doubly labeled water technique, or doubly labeled?
In the field, you can measure energy expenditure using this double label water technique, yes. But how about energy intake? Because deficit is, you have to measure both energy expenditure and energy intake.
How to measure?
How to measure energy intake reliably?
Yeah, so without having control of what they're taking in, or what? You need to control all that, or is it then something else, you think?
Did you have a diary, nutrition, food diary here in your, did you have in your fourth study?
No.
No? Okay.
They were yeah, the nutrients and protein supplements were pre-packed from as an expert in nutrition. So I didn't have anything with that.
Okay, maybe I will come back to this a little bit later. One question about statistics. You have quite often used the linear mixed effects model.
Yeah.
Why?
I have one reason for that.
I can give an additional question. What are its advantages compared to the more traditional statistical methods?
Yeah, and that's why I've implemented it, because it's not dependent on full data set. It's more flexible than ANOVA, where you need all the repeated measurements. And that you don't need in mixed modeling. And you also better handle this independence in your data with linear mixed modeling by using these randoms.
Yeah. So when there are missing data, this linear mixed model can still analyze the whole study.
Yeah, because
but is it correct physiologically? So is it correct that by statistics you can put some values instead of those missing values? Do you think that it's correct? I know that this has been nowadays. Recently, it has been used very much, but.
Yeah, because then we are coming with some fixed data, you mean, or some estimated
values.
Yeah. Yeah, that's may not be valid for the physiological changes. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good point.
Yeah, personally, I'm criticizing a little bit about this method, although my group has used this same method.
Yeah. So you prefer, what do you prefer?
More traditional ones, so repeated ANOVA, or if you have then non-parametric similar test. So. Yeah, maybe I have to go forward. Still, some questions about the thesis itself. You have described physiological differences between men and women in the military field training. My question is, why female soldiers were able to attenuate muscle mass loss and metabolize more fat and fewer carbohydrates and amino acids compared to men?
Yeah.
Why?
No, because they initially have their body compositions, they have more fat mass from the baseline.
Mm-hmm.
So they are sort of sparing the muscle mass when they're getting energy deficient. So that's my meaning.
Yeah. Okay. I will come back to this question as well later. Okay. Then you have also analyzed some hormones and other biomarkers like creatine kinase. Based on your own experience and studies, which biomarkers should we follow up in military environment when the purpose is to maintain soldiers' physical performance? If you can name one, what will be the best biomarker we have to follow up?
One single biomarker. In both men and women. Mm. One single, I'm not sure, but if it's both men and women with the same biological marker. And the cortisol stress marker, or?
Yeah. I'm not sure either, but my colleague from US, Professor Brad Nindl from the University of Pittsburgh, he has studied lots of ICF1 hormone, and he said that it's the best one. You have also analyzed ICF1 in your studies, but not very big changes during the operations or training periods. What's your opinion about IGF-1 as a biomarker?
Insulin growth factor.
Insulin
1?
growth, yeah.
No, I haven't thought about it so much.
It's also anabolic hormone.
Yes, together with testo. So I haven't sort of, I don't have a deeper thought about that.
Okay. Then we will go shortly to your paper 3, which has been accepted for publication but not published yet, as far as I understood. Mm. And here you have had 5 females and 22 males. Physiological and statistically, do you see any problems in this regard? And have you calculated the statistical power or effect sizes before your study?
No. I did not. I did not have this power for the 2 last studies, because we only had a certain amount of soldiers available at the academy, because this was in first time it was a negative. It was not that positive attitude towards allowing us to have these soldiers out of the school system. So no, we did not. We did not. But if I should have anything meaningful to say about the females, I should have.
Maybe I will ask more a little bit later.
Okay.
Then you have presented nicely that endurance and strength, they are, I think, most important physical fitness components for soldiers. Can you still elaborate why muscle strength is more and more important among soldiers?
Yeah, it was about this anaerobic capacity domain which have increased in this modern battlefield. And that is the anaerobic capacity is also related to your muscle size, where you get by greater muscle. First of all, you got more cross bridges for making force, but also you get greater storage for phosphate creatine for muscle fuel, and glycogen storage possibilities. So yeah, that's the rationale, I think.
Yeah, physiologically, but how about in practice?
In practice, well, from this correlation plots I presented, there is a moderate to strong correlation with muscle strength and all this repeated load lifting and load and carriage, casualty drags. Yeah, so it has a practical meaning there.
Okay, during this 22-week intervention, the participants also performed other physical activity, especially endurance type of activities, as far as I understood. Do you think that it attenuated optimal muscle strength development?
Yeah, so this interference effect, if you're doing the same strength and endurance in the same session, yeah, there might be an interference effect when you're getting more trained. But since they did strength and endurance on different days, there's studies shown that there is this interference effect is not a big problem.
Who was the person who introduced interference effect?
That was the Hickson study.
Yes. In this your protocol, you had also 3 weeks military leave. I understood that they didn't train during these 3 weeks. Was it like a detraining period?
Yeah, I think you can say that. I tried to motivate them to train at least maintenance sessions for this 3 weeks leave during the holiday. And I sent with them some training programs, both which they can do in the study, but also which they can do like without a lot of equipment. So, but mostly I tried to registrate. So they also got this training plan to registrate their training, and there was no one that actually did so much during the Christmas holiday. So that's maybe a the training period, and
I trust on you.
Huh?
I trust on you.
Yeah.
Okay, then you have written here similar blood levels of endocrine variables. Similar blood levels of endocrine variables. I think that it should be modified. For example, similar hormone concentration or similar hormone levels. I don't know whether this has been accepted or you have written corrected the proof of this, but I think here are some edits in this manuscript.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have taken blood samples. Have you ever taken saliva samples for analyzing hormones in military or in other populations?
No.
Okay. It's not so invasive. It's easier to take the samples from saliva as compared to blood.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So then you are speaking in this paper specific strength. What does it mean?
Yeah. I saw that you didn't like that. Yeah. Strength per kilobody, no, per lean body mass was a measurement of yeah, if this ratio increases, you increases more strength than your body mass, lean body mass. And then you can say that sort of saying you that there is other factors affecting these increases in strength. That especially that I see in after the 10th week up to 22 weeks, where they are not increasing their muscle mass, but they are, despite that, increasing their muscle strength in the 10 RM group. So yeah, but you liked more to have it into categories or something.
As far as I have learned, and Professor Keijo Häkkinen, who is one of the leading persons in the field of strength training, he has learned to me that there are 3 different categories in strength training. Hypertrophic training, when the load is between 60–80% of max, and quite long sets, about 10 or more. Then there are neural type of activities when the load is over 90, and you can go to the maximum. And then you can activate the whole muscle completely. And then power type strength training. So hypertrophic, neural, and power type strength activities.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Then my last question about this paper is, can you elaborate what do you mean when you have written high load lead to greater improvements in specific strength, potentially mediated by neuromuscular adaptations or factors such as changes in muscle morphology, brackets, improved force transmission. Improved force transmission.
Yeah. Elaborate on that.
What does it mean?
Yeah. I guess there are other morphological changes that I haven't measured in the muscle, which can explain this increase towards the end in this 10 RM group. But well, what kind of precisely what kind? I am not sure if it's changes in.
Okay, well, maybe we can discuss about later this, because time is running, and I have still the 4th paper, and I have some questions about this. You know that in military field training, energy expenditure is sometimes very high, and so how the soldiers can maintain their energy balance during strenuous long-term military exercises? What are, for example, the main micronutrients they have to take?
Yeah, which also carbohydrate, protein, and fat. You mean? Yeah. So they need to have sufficient.
From which source has most energy?
You meaning protein-rich diets?
Protein or carbohydrate or fat?
Yeah, kind of food as
which of
meat.
these 3 has more energy. If you are eating fat or versus carbohydrate.
You have these fast carbohydrates, which is they can take more often, or
Could you describe a little bit about energy metabolism? What are the main energy sources and how to utilize them in different muscle activities?
yeah. Yeah, if you have a high intensity for shorter periods, you're using this first phosphate creatine storage, and then you're using the glycogen storages. But if some prolonged duration, you presumably can use mostly slow digestive fat for energy source, and that's why you're training differently to better these long distance runners. Maybe are doing this low carb training because you want to be better to metabolize fat in their competitions in longer run.
A question about marathon runners, for example, how they prepare for the running in terms of energy supplies and or fulfilling the energy stores.
Yeah, these long marathons. Well, they try to be better to metabolize fat for a longer duration, and they just to save their glycogen storage first, and then they have during the run they have taken these carbohydrates to sort of have high blood glucose levels, because then you better preserve maybe the glycogen in the muscles.
Yeah, so it's important that in the initial phase of the marathon, they have fully carbohydrates in their muscle.
Yeah.
And how long it will last? Approximately.
Well, no, I'm not sure, but no, I don't know. Maybe it depends on how good you are at, how much you have trained for doing your to train for fat.
Yeah.
How good you are at using fat storage.
Yeah.
No, I don't know exactly how long.
Yeah, it depends, of course, the intensity and also the training history, etc., etc. But in the end of marathon running, they are starting to utilize more fat as their energy source, as you said. Yeah, it's true. Then my second last question, CK. You have studied also CK. Why you have studied creatine kinase concentration? Or activity? I don't know. Is it activity or concentration? Yeah.
I think because it has true studies in field studies. There have been creatine kinase is sort of associated with the muscle damage. Increases those levels. They can presume there has been some fiber damage in your muscles.
So we can call it indirect marker of muscle damage. Is it so?
That's how I thought about it.
Yeah. So what's muscle damage? What is happening in the muscle when there is massive damage?
Yeah. Well, the fibers which is aligned will not be aligned anymore. So they're much more chaotic in there. And that's one thing.
Yeah. and some inflammation might be there, and edema and so on.
Yeah.
How long? What's the timeline for this muscle damage? How long it will last?
Well, at least now I don't know precisely how long in the muscle, but from our sort of recovery studies, that seems like the muscle is up and working again within 1 or 2 weeks, at least for strength measurements. But the explosive power is still some delayedness in the muscle, and whether that's muscle damage or it's something about this stretch shortening reflex system, or the muscle spindles is sort of fatigued or delayed. Maybe something into that.
When you can feel the highest muscle soreness after, how quickly after the action you can feel muscle soreness?
How early?
How early or when it's the highest? If you have to put some numbers, when it's the highest value of muscle soreness after the training.
No, I don't have any reference on it. How early, but from subjective experience, so it's pretty early, within a day or after
maybe
exercise.
2-3 days after the exercise. You can feel, if you have played badminton or squash or other this kind of sport games which you have not done previously, you can feel it 2-3 days that your muscles are really sore. Okay, then you have mentioned several limitations also in your last study. You have used self-report energy intake. We discussed already energy intake, and you have self-report physical activity. Do you know how to measure objectively physical activity?
Then you can more objectively you can maybe use these devices, accelerometers, and that's this stuff. Or if you want to, accelerometers and measuring time you're walking or running.
And actually we are now developing new devices to measure physical activity, but not only physical activity, but also energy expenditure in the field conditions, utilizing heat flux sensors. So wearable sensors, they are developing very quickly nowadays, and we are also trying to develop some new technique. But I'm very happy about your results, and I thank you for your good answers. And now, Professor, you will say the next words.
We will now take a 15-minute break, and I ask that you will be back in the auditorium by 14:50. There are some light refreshments outside, as well as coffee. And I just want to remind you that if any of the members of the audience have any questions they want to ask in relation to the research, please forward your questions to me in the written form during this 15-minute break. See you back in the auditorium by 14:50. Thank you.
Hello, hello. Testing, testing. No? Hello, is it on? Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Are you refreshed?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Perfect. Just like Heikki said, it's an honor to be here, and it's not often that you, yeah, it's the right lecture, or right slide, if you wondered. It's not often that you get a chance to kind of, you know, spar with a fellow ribosome fanatic, which is nice. And now, yeah, we've handled paper 3 and 4 pretty heavily, and now it's going to be focused on 1 and 2 then. But I also have a few kind of first comments about the kind of thesis first, before we go on a trip in the solar system. In the beginning of your thesis, you talk about, for example, catabolic stress. And I think that's an interesting concept. And when does it begin? When does catabolic stress begin? Is there a time window when it's okay to be catabolic without it being stressful, or?
Yeah, I guess it's about duration, how long you are in this catabolic environment before it's starting to be more detrimental for your muscle mass and body functions. But it's also something that is necessary for our body to balancing between anabolic and catabolic in terms of having this natural protein turnover during the day and night, because there's constantly this turnover of proteins to keeping your body optimal in this homeostatic balance.
So when you say catabolic stress, you mean lack of nutrients or no food intake, or do you mean that the body can be in a catabolic stress because of other things?
Yeah, in my thesis, it was this catabolic stress was induced by nutrients reduction, as a energy deficiency and high energy expenditure. Yeah, so in this case, it was these factors, these stress factors that cause this catabolic phase for under the field exercise. Yeah,
Yeah, and can you think about if you say catabolic hormones, for example? Are there catabolic hormones and anabolic hormones?
Yeah, we think of testosterone and IGF in special for these anabolic hormones, and you have more this stress hormone, cortisol, which is elevated, and maybe more like this catabolic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we have.
I think you've answered my question, but I'm thinking like, because paper 4 now I said we would leave it, but paper 4 is it's not only lack of nutrients, right? It's also high energy expenditure and probably a catabolic stressful environment, I think. So that's, I was just wondering what you thought or what you were thinking when you were writing catabolic stress. The same thing, now we're pretty philosophical here maybe, but when does rest become inactivity?
When rest is?
When does rest become inactivity?
Yeah.
You say that you need to rest after a long march.
Recovery. When it starts to be an inactivity, yeah, sedentary
There
life.
might not be an answer. I'm just picking your brain. What do you think?
No, rest and inactivity, yeah. I guess it's about more prolonged periods if you are, sedentary lifestyle. Then
so like the recovery periods that you talk about here in your paper or in your papers, I think I found something like 2 to 6 weeks might be needed. You write somewhere in your background.
In this military field, yeah.
So that's a long period of recovery, but should that be active recovery?
Yeah.
Okay, then we got that sort of in. But I was thinking when you wrote that, 2 to 6 weeks of recovery is usually needed.
Yeah, that's because we've seen that the body mass and that composition is recovered pretty fast, but it is this muscular functions which are having this delayed recovery, which is especially this explosive in the muscle.
So it was deliberate that you chose a shorter period of recovery than what you write is recommended. You took 1 week there, and you write that 2 to 6 weeks is usually...
So we should have a longer recovery.
I don't know. I mean, maybe you could have said now that the plan was to see if the protein intake maybe sped up things. But then I guess you chose 1 week because summer was coming. No.
I don't think I have a good explanation for that, other than that's just how we had the chance to do it. That's,
okay.
No better answer than that.
And along those lines, also in your thesis where you write that previous studies have not been able to show great differences in signaling between 1 and 3 sets, but between 5 to 10 sets, there has been clear differences. But yet your study 1 is a 1 to 3 study, 1 to 3 set study.
Yeah.
Was that something that you also thought about when designing the study, or was it something that you thought about when you were writing your thesis, when the study was done?
The last part.
The last part?
The last part,
yeah.
So, we...
And that's,
I think
that's how it is sometimes.
Yeah.
All right. So would you say there's also, you wrote something about genetic variation. And Sam, right? And you brought up one example,
Alpha.
actinin 3.
Yeah.
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 Is that the best we've got?
No, that was just something. Of course, there are many other.
Has it been linked to any training response, kind of in
Yeah,
normal individuals?
This alpha-actin is sort of this. We talked about the fast gene because it's predominantly found in type 2 fibers.
Yeah.
And if you have this expression in your muscles, in persons, you may see that, okay, you are prone to be a sprinter.
But I'm thinking for your studies.
No, for my study, it was a bad example.
Yeah. Yeah. But I prepared you for that, I guess. I wrote that. This was...
I saw that.
Yeah, it's not my favorite example either. But we could, when we talk about your papers, I think we should talk about ribosomal DNA number, right? Or copy number. Is that something you're familiar with?
Yeah, I read a little bit about that.
Perfect. So save that for a little bit later. There's also, you talk about the mTOR signaling pathway a lot. And you say that some kinases, like P70S6K1, you say it's cytosolic, and P85S6K1 is in the nucleus. Is it that simple?
Yeah, this 85 isoform is found in nucleus and not the other one, 70, no.
Yes.
And
it is too.
Yeah.
It can go there. Yeah.
Yeah. So
because it phosphorylates another protein that you love very much.
Yeah, the ribosomal.
One ribosomal factor.
Yeah.
Beginning with U, and then a B.
UBF.
Yeah, exactly. So it phosphorylates UBF.
Yeah.
And if UBF is in the nucleus, then P70S6K must also go to the nucleus and has been shown to travel in response to anabolic stimulus.
All right. Was that into this cell cycle function, or?
You are right that it's a non-muscle cell that function has been shown in. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But when we talk about ribosomes now, I mean it's a small field in muscle.
Yeah.
But it's a big field in the scientific world.
Yeah.
So where would you go if you wanted to learn a lot about ribosome biogenesis?
In a research field, or?
Yeah, if you would recommend your family to read up on ribosome biogenesis and not read your thesis,
then
or your papers, or my papers, where would they go?
I guess it's you and...
Yeah, but if it's not muscle, I mean, we are learning from other fields, I think.
All right.
Yeah, it's a very, very potent process in one disease or one group of diseases, for example. That has to do with rapid growth of unwanted masses. Cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anything that wants to grow need to use ribosome biogenesis, right? So I think what I was referring to is most likely from the cancer field.
All right.
Yeah. Perfect. And then maybe switching a bit to briefly touch upon some methods. You measure RNA quantity with nanodrop, I guess. Do you do any other kind of qualitative measurements? So not see that the sample is pure, but also that integrity is fine.
With the PCR measurements?
I was thinking maybe something that you do before PCR, or you can do if you choose to see that it's not, your sample is not degraded.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This ratio.
It can be ratios still, I would say, is maybe more purity, but you could run a gel, for example.
Yeah.
An RNA gel, or you could use bioanalyzer, or is that something that you typically did with your studies, or?
Yeah, with this RNA purity, I would use this bioanalyzer, if I recall.
Yeah. Okay, because it was not in the papers, but maybe you did it also.
I think I've done that
Yeah.
with that chip.
You had me at chip. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I believe you.
Yeah.
If it's also when you're extracting RNA, before then you could use, I mean, you used trisol prep, right?
Yeah, we did that.
And you used, in one study, you used 400
Yeah.
microliters of the aqueous phase, and the other one you used 450.
Yeah.
And I could see that in the 450 one, you tend to get a little more RNA, so that's good at least. We're just looking at the average values. But was that something that you figured out that let's get some more, or can we do more?
No, I didn't have any clear methodology thought about that. No, I just did that I was told in this situation.
Yeah, okay. So maybe the pipetting skills went up in
Yeah.
the group, and you felt comfortable with 450, because that's pretty close to the organic phase.
Yeah.
I mean, you still have 50. But. All right, good. Then one final methods question here. You also use a way to normalize your gene expression data. That's not kind of, maybe, I wouldn't say it's standard. If you would ask 10 people that does PCR or qPCR, most of them would say I've used a housekeeping gene, these 2 or 3 genes, and then I did maybe some do a global mean or something from those, and you choose genes that you know are stable and not affected by your treatment. But you use other ways. Can you explain that to me, the way you did that?
Yes, this normalization thing is a big thing in my group, which have been explored a lot.
Even reviews have been written about it, I think.
Excuse me?
I think even maybe some papers have been written about
Yeah.
how to normalize it.
Yeah, no, Daniel has done a paper about that in his thesis, wasn't he? Yeah. And using these housekeeping genes, because they are, when we want to normalize things, we want it to be stable, and using these traditional housekeeping genes, maybe they are not that stable as we want. So how do we know if expression is going up and down? Is it because of the normalization factor, or is it because of is it the normalization factor that the housekeeping gene normalization is going up and down, or is it the expression? So that's why we use this normalization to tissue weight.
And then it's something that you add to the RNA that you normalize to?
And yeah, we have this we have this house lambda. I don't.
It's like an artificial thing that you put in, is it?
Yeah.
And a known concentration? Is that how it works? And you adjust it to the RNA concentration, or?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I guess we can talk more about that over coffee. Yeah, maybe we should dive into the papers. I would say the heliocentric view of things is gone, and it's a muscle-centric view. But that was before coffee. Now that's not the Death Star, it's the ribosome. So it's the ribocentric view on things we want now. So let's see here. So we feel like we're pioneers, I guess you and I, studying ribosomes and muscle. But then you find this in 2004, so 20 years ago, and it says IGF-1, PI3K, AKT, mTOR stimulates protein synthesis and ribosome biogenesis, and that gives you big muscles.
Yeah, that's
So it's been known for a while.
yeah, that's still the same.
Still the same, exactly.
Yeah.
I agree. Still the same. But I think from this picture here, I mean, it's a bit simplified, of course, but you do understand that it's the same system that kind of, the same system that makes you grow and stimulates protein synthesis and ribosome biogenesis is also, it's the same system, and maybe this slide is more for kind of family and friends. It's the same system that then is blocked when you're either stressing the body like you're doing in some of your studies, like study number 4, and if you're on medications that like glucocorticoids, for example. So it's the same system, the same kind of signaling pathway that can go either way here. So let's see here. And this you explained nicely in your talk. I just put it here in case you wouldn't mention it, that there's 2 steps in protein synthesis, right? First, you have transcription of mRNA. That is copying the genetic code into something that the ribosome can read, an mRNA. And then the mRNA takes that, or the ribosome takes that mRNA and translates into a peptide chain that is then folded into a protein. And if you have more ribosomes, this stuff is even older. Now we're 51 years back, then you got published in Nature. If you studied total RNA and protein synthesis. So the more RNA you seem to have in a cell, the faster you can make protein. And I saw that you had also this slide, or you had a rendition of this that you made yourself. And I was thinking that we should each choose a color here and try to have some fun, you and I. I'm thinking, yeah, there's some stuff on the back. For fun? Yeah, exactly. Good, there were 2. Okay, perfect. So I'm interested, are you a green guy or a blue guy?
Blue.
You're a blue guy. Okay.
Yeah.
So shall we just quickly try to, and I'm interested mainly in the below one here, which indicates that with repeated bouts, you make new ribosomes, and it seems to be shifting the baseline, and maybe then you can make more protein. But what's the time? I mean, time. What is time here?
Yeah.
And let's say that we, for simplicity, we put it like this, okay? 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then we have 12 weeks. Then we have 20 weeks. 1 year. So it's not really proportional.
Yeah.
And we're shifting the baseline. I love that with your papers, that they show that. You too, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what happens then?
Yeah.
I mean, up till here, you kind of know.
It increases and before
But are these
levels.
spikes as high? It looks like you have the same effect.
Yeah.
So it's always nice when you summarize findings from many papers and try to educate the masses. But does it become, is this true? It's 5 bouts. It's basically your first paper.
Yeah.
Or your second paper, right?
Yeah. Well, in our paper, we see that during these 8 sessions, there is a steady increase in total RNA, and then it starts to level out.
Yeah.
So
It's probably the first time in history this graph is being made. So
Yeah. Mhm.
whatever you draw, it's hard to
Say something.
that's not true. It
Yeah,
have to be
because we see
hypothesis tested, I guess.
2 weeks, and we see this steadily increase before it starts to level out. This is, okay, that's 2 weeks. So
Yeah, I thought, okay, so he wants to
Yeah.
redo the first 2 weeks. Okay.
that's something we see,
Mm.
that we have a rapid increase before it starts to level out. But as we see it, it's like a dilution effect, because the pre-RNA 47 is still sort of elevated. It's compared to the control group. So it's not because of this.
At 2 weeks, or are you at 12 weeks?
I'm talking about the 12, from 8 to 12 days now.
Days, okay.
Yeah,
we're there.
I thought we
nice.
were talking about paper 2.
Yeah. We
and
have
that-
1 hour, so we need to get here.
1 hour, wow. So there is, but it's not because the 47 is down-regulated. It's either like the hypertrophy is happening, and you got this.
So the pulses are equally high, we think.
Uh,
That's pulses of 45S.
Yeah, initially, yeah.
Mhm.
But then.
Then they're diluted, you say? Or is
yeah,
the total RNA that's...
No, it's yeah. So total RNA is diluted.
Yeah, so that's why it seems to level out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at 12 weeks then, and 20 weeks, what do we think happens?
Yeah. I think it's not coming further up.
Aye. Okay. I don't know.
All right.
I mean, we're solving a problem
No, because-
together
Yeah, because
with our backs to the audience.
Yeah, because we see it's
I don't think the pulses are equally high when we're here.
no,
Maybe not even here.
no.
Because that would be against kind of, at least what I know of kind of, when you take a training naive muscle and you stress it with resistance exercise, you see dramatic changes, right? Not only 45S, but gene expression in general. When you compare to 12 weeks, for example, when the muscle is seasoned, kind of. It's used to that stimulus. So I think that this probably levels off, and maybe you do lose a little bit of...
Of the
I
total
think so.
RNA. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Maybe they will have to be satisfied with 8 weeks.
yeah, maybe. And
That's where we stop.
Because then you have sort
Because
of
in your graph, it does start to level down, but you think it's a dilution effect. Is that correct?
yeah, in that case. But if we have stimulated it with further training or even more volume, maybe we can enhance it even more. I don't know, but maybe.
It's your next long study.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so
This threshold.
I think this part here is a bit unknown. It's clear that we need it here. And I think this delta, we're going to talk about the delta some more. But I agree with you that it's not really clear what happens when you continue. You want to continue? No.
No.
No?
No.
And then, let's see here. Maybe we'll go to this. Because this is from a paper that we have under review now, and just also for maybe family and friends to see that when you look at, this is a training naive person, and when you look at the number of genes that are up, let's say 8 hours after, it's almost 2,000 genes that change. And that fits with a muscle that's absolutely not ready. for that kind of stimulus. With time, I believe that that goes down, and that if you look at training studies that have done transcriptomics before and after a long period of training, it's usually less dramatic changes in the trained state.
Yeah.
And I'm showing this because I think that if there's a lot of genes changing, maybe that tells you that the ribosome that you have needs to be able to handle other things than your normal mRNAs that you have in the cell, right? I mean, if you're a muscle cell.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. So, in your paper 2, you see a lot of, ribosomal RNA goes up markedly.
Mm.
And you repeatedly stimulate the muscle then with bouts of exercise.
Mm.
Were they sore? Did they have DOMs? So like, were they sore in their muscles?
No, I can't remember. We didn't measure.
You didn't meet them the day after?
No.
You met them at the next session?
I'm not sure. Yeah, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
I cannot be sure if they had this soreness, but I assume some soreness they would have, according to.
So
training.
if you stress the muscle, thousands of genes change, your muscles feel sore, we think, and you're making a lot of new ribosomes. Could it be inflammation related, do you think?
Yeah, it could be related to inflammation, sort of some kind of regeneration you have to comply with in the muscle. So it may not be you get these ribosomes to build muscles in the start. No, it may not be that. It could be that you have to handle this acute inflammation and stress in the muscles, and that demands a higher capacity to this regeneration process, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I was telling you over coffee there, just seeing your, summary slide was almost, seducing.
Yeah.
It's speaking exactly into my soul. Especially that the first, maybe these ribosomes that you make in the beginning, they're special for some reason. And the people that make a lot of them can actually then switch to a growth mode.
Yeah.
Could it be like that? Who knows? And you also talk about c-Myc a little bit.
Yeah.
You love c-Myc?
Partly.
Partly, yeah. So if you look at some cancer papers, it seems like we should love MYC. MYC is everywhere.
Yeah.
MYC stimulates...
It stimulates all the polymerases.
All the polymerases, and you need all of them to make a ribosome.
Yeah.
So that seems like...
The
master
regulator.
Oh, nice. And then, this you couldn't have seen, because this is under review also. This is the same paper. If you overexpress MYC in muscle in a mouse, and you compare it to human exercise, the top genes, the top group of genes that are in the middle there, that are common, is ribosome biogenesis. So I think MYC is it hard to read?
No, I see
No?
it.
You see it, yeah? So I think ribosome biogenesis and MYC is very related also in muscle. That's why I think I would have loved some more MYC.
About that,
Yeah. But at least you have it in your pre to post paper 1, right?
Yeah. So it's
What's the timing there? Pre to post?
In the 5th session there, you mean?
Yeah, because there's 2 arrows, and clearly you did something pre and post exercise. But what's the timing after? Is it 1 hour, or is it?
Yeah, 1 hour was it.
1 hour.
Yeah.
And 1 hour was chosen because of signaling purposes.
Yeah, because mTOR and P70 those are seen elevated within
Yeah.
30 to 1 hour peak accumulation. Peak elevation.
But I figured that it was signaling, because if you look at 45S,
That's
it's not up
48. Yeah.
in the after biopsy there, right?
Yeah. Because that's in the Figueroa paper there you got. I think it's upregulated in this 48-hour window.
Yeah.
Some
We've done one paper where 30 minutes, it's not up. 3 hours, it's up.
all right.
1 hour, I guess not either, in your paper, right?
No.
Right.
No, okay.
All right. So, yeah, if we want to make a lot of ribosomes, we have to transcribe the rDNA gene, right? Because the rate-limiting step is making that 45S pre-ribosomal RNA. How familiar are you with the rDNA gene?
Nothing more than that they are this. Nothing more than that they are templates in sort of parallel. Yeah.
Do you know how many copies you can have?
No, but there have been some. Okay, if you have more templates, you presume okay they have more to transcribe. If you have more, but I don't know the exactly number. No.
It's in the hundreds, at least. And there's some papers that indicate that you can have several hundreds, up to maybe 1,000, and as few as 100 maybe. So there's a wide range there.
Yeah.
And when we say that we make more 45S pre-ribosomal RNA, let's see here if this works. So there's some of these genes are believed to be methylated in a way that they cannot ever be activated.
Yeah.
And some are what's called active or pseudo-active. Let's see. Which means that they can be called upon in a growth stimulus, right? And if you want, for example, to transcribe more rDNA genes from these, let's say, 50% of your copies that maybe is available, you need to assemble that group of proteins where UBF is central and c-Myc is also central.
Yeah.
Is that how you think about these factors too, that they hang out at the rDNA promoter, or that they float around, or what do you think?
No, they are both needed to attach to the promoter region, and
like that, right? So you see your
yeah.
UBF is binding the promoter, a lot of other factors, and that kind of have to be in place for
yes,
RNA pol 1 to land.
Yeah, and then you start, RNA polymerase.
Yeah. And out of these factors, you've mentioned MYC a little bit, but you focused on UBF.
Yeah, we did that.
Yeah. And you show that it correlates also to both growth, I think, right? And our ribosomal RNA accumulation.
So there seems to be a connection there. The more UBF,
seems to be
the
a
more
connection. Exactly. And what does UBF do? Do you know where I was going to say hang out, but do you know where it is when it's not at the promoter?
Whether it's in the nucleus or in the cytosolic fraction.
Yeah, let's start with that.
Whether it's mTOR that's sort of start the signaling and make the UBF translocate within.
Yeah, but it's bound to something that's in the nucleus, in the resting state. Something that you mention pretty fast in your background, but you highlight another protein that's bound to this protein. You talk about E2F, that's bound to RB, retinoblastoma protein.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I know,
I can feel that you wrote it there because it has to be there.
Exactly.
Yeah, But UBF is also bound to RB.
All right.
And it's when RB becomes phosphorylated, UBF can
Yeah. So
disassociate and bind the RDNA
Yeah.
promoter. Yeah.
this retinoblast.
Retinoblastoma
Factor.
protein, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the main phosphorylator of RB is not really mTOR pathway, but it's more cell cycle. And Figueiredo loves that. I don't know if you've read his papers. He talks about cyclin D1.
Yeah, cyclin D1.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
So cyclin D1 binding to CDK4 and 6, that complex
Yeah.
is believed to hyperphosphorylate RB, setting UBF free and starting or allowing for RDNA transcription.
Okay, I haven't got all that.
No, but it's that's all that remains to be done in human muscle. Let's say that. It's been shown in cells and in muscle cells, but all that maybe we'll do together in the future. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's see where we end up here. So, yeah, we've talked a little bit about this, but I'm super fascinated by the fact that the delta in your paper 1, no, paper 2, right?
Yeah.
The delta is what's highly correlated, even the strongest
Yeah.
predictor of
Yeah.
hypertrophy.
Mm.
So would you say, which one, what do you think about this? Is it just to increase translational capacity?
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
is it just a stress response that's kind of like you spook the muscle and it makes a lot of ribosomes and then it calms down? Or is it
Yeah, I think it's
specialization?
about this. If we take the whole the 2 papers, try to write it up, or draw it up.
Oh, nice.
So we have this first paper where we saw translation capacity up. Yeah. So those with greater translation capacity had also greater muscle growth. We looked in that paper. But yeah, in the second paper we had this delta thing. So it seems like since there was no correlation with the amount at session 6, so we think it's not the driving factor also not the main driving factor for muscle growth isn't the total translational capacity, but is rather this delta increase per session. Yes.
So we take out number 1 there. It's not, we're not making new ribosomes simply to increase translational capacity.
No, and that's because and what we see is that independent of the total amount, both these persons can have the same increase in muscle growth because they have this delta change, which is seems to be the most important for muscle growth. That was the main finding.
And I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then if we still think about, let's say now you draw very beautifully there, so I can skip here. This is from Thomas Caillou, where he wrote a review about what was known five years ago about ribosome specialization and muscle. So is there anything of these that you're, let's say the top there, heterogeneity of ribosome composition, so different ways of that ribosomes can differ?
Yeah.
Do you know of any of these that, what would be your bet?
So meaning this specialization, heterogeneity,
Yeah, that
starts when they are modified during these steps from part.
yeah, we believe that if we believe that they are a little bit special, because the delta is the thing,
Yeah.
the proportion of new ribosomes. So let's play with the thought that it's because of specialization. Are you familiar with any of these 6 things that he lists there that are known differences on ribosomes? Like when you compare between states and tissues and so on. Have you heard about our ribosomal protein paralogs? That one tissue can have a unique version of a ribosomal protein?
No, I haven't.
No. Have you heard about the post-transcriptional modifications of ribosomal RNAs?
Yeah, I read a little bit about that.
Yeah? Because those 2, I know happen, at least in mice. So I think that's what's going on in your human tissue as well, at least those 2. Because have you, I guess you've read papers of, oh, sorry, now it was a bit gory picture. But have you've read about the synergist ablation method?
Yeah.
Where you take away the gastrocnemius and the soleus, leaving the plantaris, and it's super, I mean, the muscle is very stressed, but it grows. Instead of you waiting 12 weeks, if you wait 14 days, the muscle almost doubles in size, and you have massive ribosome biogenesis in the beginning. So it's
Right.
it's a very nice way of doing hypertrophy research. Very fast, at least. And we have shown now in a paper that just got out that when muscle grows and you're making more total RNA, you're also, your ribosomal RNA is methylated in a different way in a transient period of time.
Right.
So you see, like, in the beginning, you have a lot of methylated ribosomal RNA, but at 7 days, when you're growing the most, maybe, or you're healing, maybe, growing, healing,
Yeah.
what is it? Then you have another pattern, and then you revert back to the hypermethylated pattern, which is typical of muscle. So something happens also in mice, that the ribosomes that they make that are new are different. So I think you're onto something. That's what I'm saying, in a very long way. Yeah. And I think that if you have stuff in the freezer, we should talk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that we have.
Yeah. All right. Perfect. I was also thinking about, just out of curiosity, you started a while ago, I heard yesterday over dinner, when you, with your thesis work. And then COVID came. How did that impact everything?
Yeah, before
Because
COVID.
all of your studies are human studies, all are long studies. Were you lucky that nothing was ongoing? Or
Yes.
did something...
No, for these studies, we were, or paper 2 was sort of the last study we did. I think it was before COVID. Yeah, it was. So we were lucky by this sampling of data.
Is everything pre-COVID? And then written up post-COVID?
Yep. Yeah, everything is before COVID.
In retrospect,
But we did this.
very good choice.
Yeah, good choice. And they had, we did the analysis during COVID because we were allowed to do that, so that was nice.
Perfect. So, if you could do now, I mean, now we've played around with the thought that these are special. And you have a lot of good stuff in the freezer, maybe, that you can start to work with. But is there What's your next study then?
Yeah. With this specialization,
I mean, it could be anything.
yeah, it could have been interesting since we see this leveling out of finding out what is the maximum stimuli or threshold that we can get. How high can we get this increase in total RNA? Because we do not know where this threshold lies.
You mean like play around with the protocols? Is that?
Yeah. To find out where is that threshold, where does it actually stop being responsive?
What can you do to keep going?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that would be maybe an interesting topic, and maybe also see, when we're interested in this, how closely connected is this this process to a stimuli, and that was we tried in study 2 with this manipulation in fluctuation in training volume. But maybe we can add with another group trying to increase volume every set and see how it goes. Then it requires a lot of biopsies if you wanted to increase per sessions, but that can also be a possibility to find this threshold.
And when you say a lot of biopsies, that would be my last question. Because the microbiopsy that you use seems, when you think about it, seems less invasive. But it also says that sometimes you go in 4 times.
Yeah, in the same hole. Yeah.
Same hole in the skin.
Yeah.
I guess not in the muscle, because then it would be empty if it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
But so I'm thinking I'm a Bergström person, and then you go in.
There might have happened.
99% of the time you're happy. When you pull out, you have enough.
No, we usually repeat it 2 times. Yeah. To be sure to have enough.
2 to 4, it says in one of your
Yeah,
papers. Yeah.
2 to 4.
So 4 times. If you're unlucky, 8 biopsies could be 32 biopsies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It could be. And
could be.
And maybe that's.
Maybe it is more lenient. We have to ask the muscle, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Great talking to you. Thanks.
Likewise.
Many thanks are due both to the candidates and to the committee for their questions. The examination committee will now leave the room to evaluate the dissertation and make their final decision. I will ask that the rest of you remain in this room, and I will announce the committee's decision within 5 to 15 minutes. Thank you. The examination committee has found Sjur Øfsteng's dissertation on June 28th satisfactory. And the committee's conclusion is unanimous. So therefore, on behalf of the rector of the Norwegian School of Sports Sciences, I now award you with the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Sports Sciences. Congratulations. You will receive your diploma at the ceremony in August at the start of the new academic year. And I would now like to ask the committee and the new Doctor of Philosophy to join me in the procession out of the auditorium. And I hereby declare this disputation for completed.